Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us for our American Athletic Conference Championship Teleconference. We're excited to stage our 2018 championship game once again on December 1st in Orlando, Florida, as Memphis takes on UCF. The game will be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern and televised nationally on ABC. Some quick housekeeping items before we get started. For those who have not yet applied for credentials, please do so before the end of business on Tuesday. And for any media members who are interested in coming out of town and staying at the headquarters hotel, please reach out to me here in the conference office before the end of the day tomorrow. We can hold your spot and the rate of $119 per night if you get to me before the end of the day tomorrow. For those who missed part of this call, we'll have archived audio available on our website, theamerican.org, shortly after its completion. We'll have transcribed quotes emailed later today as well. To ask a question of the commissioner or a particular coach during his segment, just press *1 on your keypad to join the queue. And before we begin, we did also just want to pass along one request. Coach Heupel from UCF is not going to be equipped to answer any health-related questions regarding Mackenzie Milton due to the family's wishes for privacy and HIPAA rules surrounding that. So we would appreciate your consideration as you formulate your questions for Coach Heupel during his segment. But that said, we will begin our teleconference with American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Aresco. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. Can we get your thoughts, please, on the upcoming championship game and returning to Orlando?
Thank you, Chuck. Can you hear? Am I loud enough on the speakerphone?
Loud and clear, yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I do, again, alluding to Mackenzie Milton, we're obviously very glad that the reports that, from his family that the surgery he had was successful, and obviously they're monitoring his condition. I just want everyone to know that we're all thinking of him as everyone is around the country. Prayers with him, an outstanding young man. And this is not about football now. This is about his long-term health and well-being, and he's got a long life ahead, and we wish that that he makes a full recovery. Now, he's a great competitor, and he'll want to play again, but that's not the point. The point right now is, we're all concerned about just him going forward, not having any issues from this. But it was obviously a terrible injury. So again, just want everyone to know we're thinking of him, and he'll be thought of a lot at the game, of course. Congratulations to both teams. These are two worthy teams. Obviously, UCF's had another incredible season, undefeated, and Memphis has come on strong. They gave UCF its toughest game earlier in the year, and they showed a lot of grit and fortitude coming back to win their division after having some initial setbacks. Obviously, we go back to UCF, which was a great destination last year. Ticket sales have been phenomenal. There should be a full house there. It should be another great look on ABC. We expect another intense, competitive game. There's a lot at stake, as you know, in this game, and I think both teams will give a good account of themselves. And then, obviously, we'll be looking at our bowl matchups down the road once this is over. And our goal, of course, in our bowl lineup is to play as many so-called P5, Power 5 conferences as possible. But we look forward to a great championship game. We've got two great head coaches, obviously, with Mike Norvell at Memphis and, of course, Josh Heupel at UCF. And what they've both done, Mike now has been there, several years now, and has just followed in Justin Fuente's very difficult footsteps and has done a phenomenal job. And Josh Heupel taking over with all the pressure, with the winning streak and all, has also done an incredible job. So we've got two great head coaches, two terrific teams, and it should be quite a day on Saturday.
We'll take questions at this time for Commissioner Aresco. Again, to ask a question, hit *1 on your telephone keypad to get in the queue, and then the operator will introduce you.
And we'll hear from Trice Trickle with the Nightline Sports Network.
Commissioner, you mentioned Mackenzie Milton. Would you talk a little bit more about the impact his play has had over the last couple of seasons in helping to raise the profile of the American?
Well, Mackenzie's a unique player. He has special talents. He's a great leader, but he also is just, there's no other way to describe it. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, has been. And what he did, UCF has had outstanding teams the last few years, and he's been so integral to what they do, and his leadership, his competitiveness, his competitive fire. Yes, it's raised the profile of the American Athletic Conference, what he and his teammates have done the last 2 years, what UCF has done. There's no question about it. And this league has been good for quite a while, but there's no question his impact has been profound. And that's, and again, everyone around the country, he's well known. He's been a Heisman candidate the last few years. Everyone out there knows him, knows about him, and is pulling for him. And again, it's really a hard thing. It's been a hard thing for everyone, and again, we just hope he's going to be okay.
What strides do you think the Americans made over the past year?
Well, I think we've been making strides really since the beginning, but this past year we took it to a new level. We, as you know, won a Fiesta Bowl and a national championship in basketball, men's and women's, in our very first year, and we've been outstanding since then. The last 3 years plus, we've had 33 P5 wins. We've had tremendous success in the New Year's Bowl games, but this year it was carried to another level because of the UCF winning streak. UCF being ranked as high as 9th in the CFP rankings and possibly even higher this week. That has brought tremendous attention to the league. We had our first conference game ever on ABC in prime time. We had Temple Notre Dame several years ago. So this year, everything has been carried to a new level. And in basketball, we're poised to be one of the best conferences in the country with Dan Hurley at UConn, with Penny Hardaway at Memphis. And you saw that the top recruit has, you saw that on ESPN, what Penny's been doing on the recruiting trail. We added Wichita State. So the conference, has never, UConn women are poised again to have a great season. The conference has been firing on all cylinders, but I think this year it reached certainly a peak, and to have UCF with that winning streak and to have the attention that we got from game day in Orlando, one of the best attended game days ever, was really tremendous for the league.
Thank you.
And if you have other questions for Commissioner Aresco, please star 1 on your telephone keypad if so.
And we'll hear from Don Wade with the Daily Memphian.
Like, obviously, the various programs, you can only control what you can control, and you can't control how voters act or anything like that. But to the extent that there is control from the athletic directors in scheduling to try and maybe make more headway with the committee in future years when teams are in a position like UCF is right now, what needs to happen, in your estimation, in non-conference scheduling in football to maybe put a little more pressure?
Well, it's interesting. We have been extremely aggressive with non-conference scheduling. We've played Oklahoma, we've played Penn State, we've played Notre Dame, we've played SEC teams, we've played a lot of ACC teams, including Virginia Tech, home and away. We've played Pac-12 teams. Memphis beat UCLA a few years ago. Last year they beat Ole Miss after they had beaten Alabama a few years ago on national TV. We had Stanford against UCF, and they're coming back to UCF next year. We've scheduled a lot of excellent, non-conference games. But also, sometimes when you schedule games, they don't non-conference games, they don't pan out the way you think. For instance, Danny White scheduled North Carolina when they were not only a top team, they had almost beaten Clemson in their championship game a few years back. And he didn't know, one, that the game would end up not even being played, and also that maybe North Carolina wouldn't be as good. But, they played Pitt, and Pitt has had a good season, won the Coastal Division in the ACC, and they were walloped by UCF. So our ADs have been extremely aggressive in trying to schedule top games in the P5. Some years you have, for instance, like Houston a few years ago, you had the number 3 team in Louisville, the number 3 team in Oklahoma, and they won both games, didn't win in the conference. But that's just something that sometimes you can't control how teams are going to be when you play them. But also, there's also a difficulty sometimes in scheduling the kind of games you want against some of the marquee teams home and away. We'd like to get home and away games. We don't want to do bye games in this conference. That's not who we are. So that's been difficult too. But we have tried to schedule aggressively. Look, I believe that if a team in our league is undefeated, as UCF has been, that they deserve a shot at the playoff because they are a really good team, and they have shown it. I mean, the Pitt score compared to Pitt's results against other teams like Notre Dame and like teams in the ACC, very favorable toward UCF, and they've had an outstanding season. When you can you can win 23 games in a row, that's remarkable. I don't care who you are, and our league is very good. When we win these big games, people didn't really talk about the quality of the Temple win for UCF this year. I don't want to digress too much, but the point is Temple was a really good football team. After the first two games when Anthony Russo came in, that sparked that team, and they almost beat BC up there when BC was playing well. And they beat Maryland by 3 touchdowns. It was 35-10 down at Maryland. That's a Maryland team that almost came within a 2-point conversion of beating Ohio State. So we have got a lot of good teams in our conference. Cincinnati, obviously, Temple this year that UCF has played. Memphis on the road. That was a Super Bowl for Memphis when they played them on the road, and they had to grit out a tough win, and they'll have a tremendous championship game. So again, our non-conference schedules have been very good. And by the way, over the next 10 years or so, we have 150 games roughly against the so-called P5 and Notre Dame, and that's a tremendous number of games. Most of our teams play at least 2 P5 games a year. That's our goal. So we're not shying away. We've always played up, and some years, you end up with a tougher strength of schedule than others. But I still think we should be judged like other teams. I've said if an Ohio State is undefeated playing in our conference, I bet they'd be in the playoff. And so consequently, we just want to be treated like everyone else. But again, we schedule very aggressively.
Thank you.
And any final questions for Commissioner Aresco, please? Take the next question.
Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine.
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissioner.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for asking. A kind of a strange question, but are you afraid with as well as your football teams are playing that other conferences, preferably the Big 12, may start to raid a few of the teams?
Nah, you can't worry about that. You can't think about it. We have to concentrate on our conference and continue to be, a P6 conference, eventually getting there officially. That's our goal. That whole thing went down a couple of years ago, as you know. We weathered it, and it doesn't look like there's anything out there now. We really, honestly, you may not believe me, but we don't really think about it anymore. It's really a focus of building this league. There's been tremendous cohesion. Everyone's bought into the P6 narrative. With respect to realignment, whatever happens. You don't really worry about it. At this point, our goal is to build this league up, to make sure every team playing in this league has the best opportunity to show themselves nationally, to play in the playoff if they qualify, to be in the NCAA tournament. That's our goal, and you can't worry about the other.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And we can take one more for Commissioner Aresco, please.
And that would be Dan Tortada of WakeUpCallDT.com.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Now, Mike, just what you could say about Memphis and Central Florida, just what these two teams have done. Obviously, Central Florida's 24-0, and Memphis had some adversity in the middle of the season to fight to where they got to. Just what you could say about the representation in this championship game.
Well, Dan, the interesting thing is, although Memphis, struggled at times this year, they always had a plethora of talent, and they're a really good team, and they finally, got things together. A very dangerous team. Darrell Henderson's one of the best players in the country. They've got a veteran team, extremely well coached by Mike Norvell. They will be a dangerous opponent, and you put them against a lot of teams that have won divisions around the country. You put them on a neutral field, they would do extremely well. They could win those games. So they'll be a tough opponent for UCF. Now, what can you say about UCF that hasn't already been said? A phenomenal year. Every game they play is somebody else's Super Bowl or biggest game, and they've withstood every punch they've taken. The Mackenzie Milton injury is obviously going to affect them, and obviously it's a real blow. We'll see how they respond. They responded extremely well on Friday, and I think they should be given a lot of credit. at the beginning of the second quarter, when Mackenzie went down, they came in and Gary O'Mac did a fine job, and the team rallied. And you win a rivalry game like that against a good team on the road, 38-10. That shows you the kind of resiliency this team has. Everybody saw them on national TV against Cincinnati. So again, they'll obviously give a good account of themselves. These are two really good teams, and my hope is that whatever happens, that UCF is still accorded the respect they deserve, and Memphis again will be a tremendous opponent for them. This is going to be a very intense game. No team has given UCF better games, regardless, in the conference or outside the conference, than Memphis the last few years. And again, they'll come in, playing extremely well recently and very dangerous. So, Dan, it should be a very, very a good matchup. And, again, we expect tremendous game on ABC on Saturday.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it as always.
You're welcome.
Mike, appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. We'll see I know you will be seeing everyone down in Orlando, and we look forward to catching up with everyone there.